Liftoff will start in T-minus 10 seconds.
Hey everybody, this is Evan and John, and you're listening to the Boomer and X Show.
I'd like to buy the world a home and furnish it with love. Grow apple trees and honey bees and snow white turtle doves. I'd like to teach the world to sing. Sing with me. Perfect harmony. Perfect harmony. I'd like to buy the world a coat and keep it company. And for real, I'd like to teach the world to sing.
All right, everybody. Welcome to the Boomer and X Show. And if by chance you are a fan of Mad Men and haven't watched the series finale yet, go ahead and skip a few minutes ahead in the show. But
Yeah, spoiler alert.
yeah, spoiler alert. And probably, in truth, everybody that is interested has already seen it, and they know that that's how the show ended right
Yeah,
there.
if you call yourself a fan and haven't seen the last episode, then you're not really a fan.
Then I guess we don't have any guilt with messing up their thing, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the show, the series finale, Mad Men, they end with what I thought was very interesting. In the last just minute, you have
That commercial.
yeah. Which was a real life commercial,
Mm-hmm.
and was actually done by
A Coke executive?
no, it was done by the advertising firm McCann Erickson, which is who had absorbed Sterling Draper Price, whatever
Yeah.
their name was finally at the end. But anyway, that's who Don Draper and everybody else was now working for, was McCann Erickson, who really did that commercial, who really had the Coca-Cola account back in
Cool.
1971 when that commercial came out. The guy that wrote it, or that actually kind of planted the seed and started for it, his name was Bill Backer. He was on a flight that got grounded, and they had to wait on weather. So what he did, and other people, they had to wait, and he saw a lot of people that were very upset about the delay. So this ad executive is at the airport, and there are a lot of people that are upset, disgruntled about the situation. Their flight's delayed. They're waiting on fog. And but then the next day, he encounters these same people, and they're all standing around laughing and visiting with each other, drinking Cokes and having snacks. That's where he gets the seed of the idea that a Coca-Cola is something that 100 million people around the world a day have, and so people sort of, in a sense, share it.
So he didn't buy them all Cokes?
No,
Oh,
they
okay.
were having the Cokes, and he saw them having the Cokes and in a much better frame of mind than they were the last time he saw
So
them.
this guy essentially was Don Draper?
So yeah, that's kind of the deal. He's doing something that has nothing to do with his job, and then he gets this inspiration for this great Coca-Cola commercial.
So yeah, in the end of the show, he was meditating.
He was meditating,
And he just kind of gets this little grin.
right,
And then it shoots to that commercial.
and then it goes to the commercial, which arguably I would say is probably the most successful commercial ever, because it was redone again in 1980 as a Christmas commercial. It was redone again in 1990 as a reunion commercial, where they have a lot
just
of
pretty much redid the whole commercial.
Well,
with the same.
Well, they had
yeah.
a lot of the same people, but they have like their kids joining them and everything
Yeah.
like that. So not only was the commercial redone at least twice, and in that 1991 it was a Super Bowl ad, so you know that everybody's putting their best foot forward at that point.
Mm-hmm.
But also the song, actually, instead of "I'd like to buy the world a Coke, I like to teach the world to sing," actually became a real song that was played on the radio in the early 70s in the United States.
So it was the song first, then the commercial?
No, the commercial jingle. The actual commercial jingle. And then
a song came
and then they
from
did
it.
a song.
Really?
Yeah, by
That's got to be not how it usually goes.
You're right.
Yeah, I'm thinking a song
songs
becomes a jingle.
So, but this jingle actually became a song, and it was done by a group called the Hillside Singers.
Yeah,
the Hillside Singers. The original was done by the New Seekers, and this was done by the Hillside Singers. So what we had the fictitious world of Donald Draper and his ad agency enter the real world of advertising. So I really liked that aspect of it.
Yeah. So let's talk about, I guess, the last episode.
Yeah, the last episode. I liked that a lot. I liked the fact, for those of us that watched the show through its entire run, we always saw Peggy Olson kind of either end up with nobody or somebody not any good.
She got with the artist guy.
And she finally got with the artist guy, and you told me you saw that coming.
How did you not see that coming from like the first episode?
I didn't see it coming. But I still have like 3 seasons on my DVR, so I'm going to watch and pay more attention over the next. Probably I'll have that to keep me busy until football season.
And see, I had that thought, I think, literally in the first or second episode, that those two were probably
that you saw them together.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't.
No.
Now, I'm fine that they did it. I didn't like the way they did it because it went from nothing to like can't keep our hands off of each other, and I thought that was kind of forced.
Well, they had to wrap it up. You're right. It was forced.
But it was forced.
Yeah.
It was forced at that pace. They could have moved a little. If they were going to go there, they should have given better hints in the previous several episodes.
I wonder how much of that happens in a final episode where they're like, "Oh, well, this is the last episode, but we got all these loose ends to wrap up."
Well, I don't get into a lot of last episodes, but there was Lost, and I didn't watch the show, but I heard people that were fans of the show didn't like that.
Well, yeah, because it could have went anywhere. That show could have ended anyway, and they kind of chose a weird way to do it. But
now I'll tell you the most viewed last episode ever, and I don't think it'll ever be beat because
MASH.
Things are more fragmented now. MASH.
Yes.
And everyone who watched it, and I think there were 3.6 trillion people on Earth and on other galaxies as well watching that. Farewell, Goodbye, and So Long, or something like that was the name of it. I think everybody loved the last episode of MASH. Now this was way back in 1983, so I don't remember everything about it, but it just seems like everybody was just super happy with the way it turned out.
Yeah, true.
You've seen it?
But I don't have a. I guess you're right. I don't have a.
Well, the fact that you've even seen that, it really says something because it happened 6 years before you were born. So that means you had to see a final episode of a show that aired.
I probably saw it 20 years after it aired.
So that says something that it was still important enough for you to see it. How much of the show leading up to that have you seen?
Every weekend when we went out to my grandparents, Papa would have it on.
Okay.
And so we would that's kind of how I watched it. Because
MASH has run in reruns ever since. It's I could go right now and go through my TV guide and see at least an episode of MASH on there today. Yeah, certainly.
So I'm guessing Draper, hinted at that he made that episode and they all lived happily ever after.
That he went back home and did that, kind of got his head screwed on and went back home and did that commercial. I guess you could have, there's an alternate conclusion you could have come to, that he got peaceful with wherever he was and that the advertising world went on without him, but I was
expecting to see him to be one of the people in the crowd singing.
Oh,
that's what I was waiting on.
Yeah, I think really the most logical is that he went back and created that commercial again, which I'll just go ahead and say is probably the most successful commercial of all time. When they were filming it, they actually had to. They had a lot of cost overruns, and they had to move it to Rome, and
Georgia,
Rome.
When did
Rome do as the Romans do? Rome, Italy, because they were having so many weather problems in Ireland. They had to move it to.
Well, yeah,
Rome
it rains there all the time,
film
every day, right?
It doesn't rain all day, every day, anywhere, but. It ended up costing them $250,000, even way back then, to just shoot the thing because of delays and everything. But still, they got their money's worth out of it.
It was a minute long, and it cost them that much to do it?
Even back then.
Jeez.
Yeah, but they had to relocate everything and delays.
And I guess all the actors and actresses move them, too.
Yeah. So anyway, I thought it was real interesting. Let's see. Joan, the character defined by her very large hair.
Yeah.
She started her own business,
Yep.
They introduced a love interest in her life in the past, in like the last 4 or 5 episodes, and he was a self-made man. He was very wealthy. He kind of wanted her to just be a housewife, and that's not what she said. Right, exactly. So she's like, you know what, adios, I'll do my own thing. And so she started her own business and was using her apartment as her office. Peggy was working hard.
Didn't really say what she ended up doing.
Well, Joan made an overture toward her to come in business with her.
So you kind of
it looks like happened? It looked like she kind of turned her down, but yeah. I guess anything can happen for sure. Peggy and the art guy, I'm forgetting his name.
I don't know his name
they
either.
got, they fall in love. Mm-hmm. I thought what was really interesting too was Roger Sterling now is going to marry Megan's mother, and Megan was Don's second ex-wife.
Because I remember at the end he said, "Get some wine for some champagne,
champagne for my mother." And and he looks like he's old enough to be her father. And I thought that was, but really throughout the whole show, when it came to one-liners, it was him.
Oh yeah,
his were the best. I mean, he had that better than Don. They wrote that for his character better than they wrote it for anybody else, and so that was kind of very appropriate that he had a nice little zinger.
The actor.
Yeah.
He's
John
in that,
Slattery.
Yeah. He's in that movie.
He's in I saw that.
What movie was that? He's the only one of all of them I've seen in something else.
In something else, but I full well expect to see more of them in other things.
Something with the lawyer.
Yeah, it was a judge. They were in a courtroom.
Oh, Ted 2.
That's it.
Ted 2.
So it's obviously a comedy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's, like you just said, he's good with the one-liner, so I bet he's in some way going to be a funny character.
Yeah. I guess, sad in terms of TV sadness, not, certainly real life, but in terms of TV sadness, Betty's terminal cancer, Don's first ex-wife, terminal cancer, was how they said goodbye to her.
They left it that way, huh?
Yeah. You just see her sitting there kind of
smoking.
Alone, smoking. Yeah. And so that was kind of sad. But anyway, it was a good show. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a very smart, well-written, well-directed, well-acted show. I loved the period
I was about to say the same thing. And not only the period, but the way, I think you told me this, even the TV guide on the coffee table of the set was from that day.
Right. The guy that played the priest, who happens to be Tom Hanks' son, was talking about, because, he was on a few episodes. He wasn't a major character, but he played Peggy Olson's priest. And he talks about being on the set and that the week that episode was taking place, they actually had a TV guide on the coffee table from that week. I'm like, man, that's serious
authentic
attention to detail. It really was. And another thing I really liked about it was the music. Maybe insert a little bit in an episode, but always at the end there was always a good song, and it was from that era. And I really thought that added a lot too. So anyway, that's our little deal with Mad Men and advertising and Coca-Cola and so on and so forth. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to say goodbye to somebody else.
God bless you. Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Okay, last night, Wednesday night, May 20th, 2015. After 33 years of what I consider the finest late-night comedy in the history of American television, David Letterman retires as 13.76 million viewers look on.
And then May 21st, 2015, he decides what a big mistake he made.
I doubt it. I doubt it. Although certainly over the past several weeks, a lot of people have come on and paid their respects and made it sound like he's dead. Praised him for all he's meant to them. A lot of them he's personally helped their careers. Yeah. Not only had they watched him, he's helped their careers. Even last week, George Clooney handcuffed himself to David Letterman. He's saying, "I don't want you to go," and they stayed handcuffed together for the whole episode. I actually think Dave was kind of like, "Okay, this was cute for 20 seconds, and not so much anymore." Sorry, February 2nd, 1982. I was 20.
I was -7.
And I remember the very first time I saw it. First of all, growing up, in the set, and I find myself, because we wanted to talk about this. I certainly wanted to talk about it, and I kind of find myself in the same mindset that I was with the Miracle on Ice conversation, in that I don't think there's any way for someone that wasn't around then and old enough to know what was going on to understand how big that was.
Okay, so I don't know.
And I think the same thing with Letterman, because now we have so many things. We have, The Simpsons. We have South Park. We have all of these things that are irreverent, kind of off the wall, to where strange almost is the new norm.
Yeah.
Back in 1982, when David Letterman came on the air, that was not the case. Not at all. In fact, there's a term out there called alternative comedy, and it was coined in England in the late 1970s, but it really wasn't used in the United States in 1982. Late Night with David Letterman comes on, and all of a sudden, the sit down and talk or a stand-up comic comes out and does a set and then sits down and talks to the host. All of a sudden, that's blown out of the water with David Letterman. But going back real quick to the beginning, when you had your networks and you had 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 cable channels if you were one of the people in 1982 that had cable. So the choices were limited, and there was obviously no internet.
Heck, I think we only had 3 channels.
Yeah, you probably did, ABC, CBS, and NBC.
Yep.
And so when he first came out, he wasn't on the NBC affiliate in Shreveport. But I, with my wife at the time, took a trip to Arkansas.
Now, when you say when he first came out, you're talking about on the Tonight
82.
Show?
On his own show.
On his own show.
On his own show.
Okay.
Yes. At first, they were still showing reruns of what was called the Tomorrow Show.
Okay, that's right. Yeah.
With Tom Snyder. And it really wasn't good. I mean, I was watching it because I've been an insomniac since I can remember, and I was always watching TV until you heard the national anthem and they went to the test pattern.
Yep.
So you had Tom Snyder. In fact, he was so bad that Dan Aykroyd on Saturday Night Live did a great send-up. But anyway, so I'm on this trip, I'm on this vacation, and Johnny Carson goes off, and I see this show come on, Late Night with David Letterman, and I watch it. I was hooked from the get-go.
What episode was that?
It was, I couldn't tell you. It wasn't the very first one, but I would say it was in the first month, because I remember this was a winter trip. My son was a little over a month old, and this was a winter vacation that my wife and I took. So it was within the first few weeks of him being on, and I get back to Shreveport, and he's not on. But within a few weeks, he's on there as well.
So you went home, you Google searched, what time does he come on?
You just like, well, when is he going? And sure enough,
you just had to wait.
You just had to wait. Yeah, there he was. Yeah, right. I was like, I could go to YouTube and look. Yeah. Oh,
see, and I was about to get
David Letterman.
A lot of the David Letterman stuff I've seen was on YouTube.
On YouTube,
yeah.
Because you haven't really been a regular watcher of the show.
No, because we weren't allowed to stay up that late when I was growing up.
Right.
And I just kind of didn't watch it. Just every once in a while. I wasn't a fan because I never watched it my whole adolescence. So.
Right. Of course, by the time he came on, I was out on my own, so I could watch whatever I wanted to, certainly. But his brand of humor, the fact that he showed no fear.
I just like how true he is. He's
very honest.
When he's mad, he's not going to hide it. He's going to be mad.
Right.
When he doesn't like the person, he's going to not hide that. You were telling me about when he had this little slept with one of his staff or something?
Yeah, but that came out in 2009. What happened in 2009, and some of you probably already heard about it, but he had some affairs with more than one, because it's in plural. I don't know if it was 2 or 22, but more than one staff member. And someone was going to use that to blackmail him. So he gets the law involved, which you're going to do, but he did this also. He comes on his show, and he does his monologue, and then he comes and he sits down, and he has a series, and he looks right in the camera, and he says, he starts talking about the things he's done. And he talks about how wrong it was. And he talks about now there's somebody out there that's trying to profit from this, and we're doing, what we need to do to take care of it, but that's what's happened. That's what's going on, and I've, learned. But I just thought, that's ballsy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's straight out there. I mean, because so sit in front of a few million viewers and just be straight up about it like that is, to me, I was impressed. I mean, I was a little let down that he had acted that way, but, we all make mistakes. It seems like he learned from it.
Yeah.
There was another thing in 2000. He had quintuplet bypass surgery. He was gone 5 or 6 weeks, and I believe he certainly there were some guest hosts. I know Regis Philbin guest hosted. I don't know if there were others or not, but I know he did. There might have been some others as well, which was the only time Dave ever had guest hosts. Johnny Carson had guest hosts all the time, especially in the later years. He was almost never there. Dave never had guest host. If the show was on, it was Dave, with the exception of his recovery period after his surgery. What does he do on his first episode back? He brings the whole team of surgeons, nurses, anesthesiologists, everybody.
Mm-hmm.
He brings them out on the show and talks about the praises. And I've seen several episodes where he's brought them back.
Well, he was he'd bring on people on his staff, and
Biff Henderson.
Yeah.
He's got to be the most famous stagehand in the history of the world.
Yep.
Yeah.
And he brought him out last night.
He has sent Biff to Super Bowls and car races, and he's sent interns to places like that to do interviews.
He's like Stephen Colbert calls it the Colbert bump. I guess, I don't know, Letterman, what does he call it?
Well, I don't know.
I vouch for this guy.
Speaking of vouching for, there was something I read this morning. I'm glad you mentioned that. Conan O'Brien, when Letterman moved from NBC to CBS because he didn't get the Tonight Show because I went to Leno, then that opened up the 11:30 time slot, and I'm Central Time, to someone else because Letterman moved up to 10:30. And on CBS, so he was right after the local news, but Conan O'Brien then takes over the 11:30 Central time slot on NBC, Dave's old spot, following the Tonight Show. Ratings were terrible. Critics didn't like it, couldn't stand it. It had been on about 3 months or so. Letterman calls their show and says, "I want to come on." They, of course, have him on. And he gets on there. He's funny. He's witty. He's sharp. And he says some very nice things about the show. And that turned it around like that. Conan O'Brien
owes his career.
He credits David Letterman for saving his career and saving his show. And Conan is on. I mean, he's on TBS now with his late show. It didn't go so well when he took over the Tonight Show, and then Leno came back, and then Leno finally left again, and Fallon's over there now. So I wouldn't say Conan was one of the biggest names in late night right now, but he's certainly there, and he has a following because he's been on TBS for several years now. Somebody else that says Letterman made him what he is, and that was Ray Romano.
Yep.
Who did a stand-up routine on Letterman. And the production company of Letterman, Worldwide Pants, called shortly after that and said, "We really like your stuff. We want to build a show around it." And thus, everyone loves Raymond. Yeah. So, and other things I'm sure we don't know about. I know that Julia Roberts made mention one time she was on that Dave Letterman sent her a bouquet of roses every year on her birthday. I don't know. I'm just a huge fan.
So, what's up with Schaefer, Paul Schaefer?
Well, he's 65 years old. I know he's going to play. I mean, I read something where he's going to play.
I saw and this is a quote. He says, "I want to do more comedy, more acting, maybe a 3-episode arc on Law and Order."
Schaefer.
Schaefer
really?
said that.
Interesting. Well, who hasn't been on Law and Order? And I mean, haven't they had like 8 different Law and Order series?
I guess that's a show that he likes. And
I guess so. But certainly, I mean, everybody's been on it, so, more power to him.
So we mentioned Stephen Colbert there. He's taken over.
I think, in August or September, I saw.
Yeah. And he's, of course, he's going to shed that fictional right-wing...
Right.
Yeah. So I wonder what he's going to do, though. I know he's going to do that. He's going to shed the
fake
right-wing
persona.
thing. Yeah.
You're right.
So I don't know. He's pretty good at interviewing people, and that's a big part of the job. But speaking of interviewing, that is something Dave is a master at.
Dave certainly, as the years went along and he got a little less silly, and a little more serious, I thought he became a very good interviewer. Where it didn't look like he was going down a list of questions. I would watch maybe Leno or somebody else, and it looks like you're going down a list of questions.
And he would interact with them.
It looks like he's having a conversation.
Yes,
right. And some of them could be extremely funny given the circumstances. You told me about one that you really
I picked
liked.
three.
Okay.
Three of my favorites. Let me give them to you. The Jerry Lawler and Andy Kaufman.
Way back.
July 28th, 1982. So Jerry Lawler was an actual wrestler.
Right.
He's a wrestler. And Andy Kaufman had called him out. And it was like a big thing in the media for I don't know how many weeks or whatever, but they were back and forth. And then of course Lawler, I don't know, double suplexes the guy twice or something and puts him in a neck brace.
Right.
Okay. So they go on on Dave's show and they're they're talking about the fight and everything. Lawler ends up punching Kaufman in the face, and Kaufman flips out and he says, "I'm gonna sue you," and he's like F-bombing like crazy. And what I didn't know when I was watching this highlight on YouTube was Dave had no idea these two were doing a stick.
So that was all scripted between them.
Yeah, they're friends.
Okay.
Those two were like just playing a part. And Dave was just, I don't know how you don't just like, I don't know. If you haven't seen it, then
I've seen. Yeah.
I mean, I know you've seen it. I'm talking to our listeners. If you haven't seen it, go watch it, because to keep your cool with all that going on live TV, I don't know how he did that.
Yeah, he definitely. It was hard to shake him. I mean, it was really, really hard to rattle.
Kaufman's like throwing hot coffee at Lawler, and just,
yeah. There was that. What was one of your others?
Okay, Paris Hilton.
Yeah.
The reason I loved that one was September 30th, 2007. And what I loved about it, she was on the show to talk about some perfume or some kind of movie or something that she was doing. And all he wanted to talk about was her recent stint in prison.
Right. She did some jail time.
45 days.
Yeah.
And she eventually was like, "Oh, I'm done. I'm not talking about this anymore. It's over, Dave. Stop asking about it."
She said, "I don't want to talk about this."
And he's like, he pauses for a second. He's like, well, that's where me and you differ, because that's all I want to talk about. And so she actually just stopped answering questions, and he just kept going with it and it was hilarious. My third was Madonna, March 31st, 1994.
He ticked her off with the introduction.
Yeah. Well, he had always every episode. He talked about
joked about her looseness.
Yeah.
For like.
So she goes on and she got a bone to pick.
Right.
And he didn't let her pick it. He was back and forth with her, and
he didn't mind ticking people off. He didn't mind ticking powerful people off.
Actually, he liked to make fun of them for taking power, putting power and fame over being a normal person. He liked to make fun of them for that.
He did. He definitely enjoyed it. Well, here's what happened. He got a show in '82. GE bought NBC in, I guess, 85 or 86. So what does Letterman do? Now, keep in mind, this is back in the mid-'80s, before it was normal to be kind of crazy. He takes a big bouquet of flowers down to the GE headquarters, and because he's making fun of the whole thing, and he knows what they are, and he takes his camera crew, and they show exactly what they are. They finally have somebody just throw him out.
Wow.
And so, and he knew that was the kind of reaction he was going to get. He wasn't really going down there to say, "I'm so happy that you're now my new bosses." No, he was going down there to poke fun at him.
Yeah.
In 1985, they were doing some sort of live segment outside of 30 Rockefeller Center for the Today Show. Of course, the Today Show is usually in the morning. For some reason, they were doing something in the evening. He gets a megaphone, and he yells out the window, and he interrupts the taping of the Today Show with Bryant Gumbel, who I never, ever saw him do anything that made me think he had the least bit of a sense of humor. Got a real burr up his ass about it, and kept it there for several years. So, again, kudos to Dave. There was another interview, and this happened, I think, 5 or 6 years ago, when Joaquin Phoenix came on.
Yeah.
Sunglasses, beard. He's in the middle of doing this mockumentary film, but nobody's in on it except him and his
the
director Casey
He's like,
Affleck.
what, he's playing a actor that's quitting and...
to go into rap music.
Yeah, that's right.
And so Dave's not in on it. And I was watching this as it happened that night, and I'm like,
what is he smoking?
what the hell?
Yeah.
And it was just bizarre. And
it was.
No matter what he did, Dave had a comeback.
Yeah.
And finally at the end, he says, "Well, sorry you couldn't be here tonight." And then about 18, 20 months later, Joaquin comes back and explains.
And he's all clean shaven, nice looking.
And explains what the whole thing was all about. There was a deal during the 2008 campaign where John McCain was supposed to be on David Letterman's show. He calls in, he cancels. He says, "I'm headed to the airport so that I can get to Washington, so that I can do something about the economy and blah blah blah." Dave gets a feed from where Katie Couric is, and John McCain's getting makeup put on to do a whole deal with Katie Couric. Mm-hmm. He's not on his way to the airport. Dave lets him have it, rips him, and he says, "It doesn't look like he's rushing to the airport to me." and they would go back to that during the course of the night, and they would hit that. Several weeks later, John McCain is on, and Dave hits him pretty hard, and John McCain finally just says, "I screwed up." So it didn't matter. It didn't matter who it was. He wasn't going to shy away from a confrontation if that's what it needed for to make the TV interesting.
So I had my favorite 3 interviews. Do you have a list like that?
Interviews. Well, I like the Joaquin Phoenix one.
Yeah.
As far as I tell you something, I liked it. Out of all of the things that were talked about, I didn't see this brought up, so I'll bring it up. The fact that a couple of 3 years ago, whenever Superstorm / Hurricane Sandy was hitting the New York City area, and nobody was supposed to go anywhere, he does 2 shows with a skeleton crew and no audience. Yeah. On one of them, Denzel Washington walked in. He walked and was there as a guest, or they showed him walking. Maybe he really got somebody, but there was no traffic on the streets. Mm-hmm. He said, "We don't want anybody to come in, and risk hurting themselves coming in." So he actually went out on the stage and did a monologue
to no one.
Yeah. And I thought, how damn brilliant is this? And I don't know if the other night they had somebody on or not, but you could tell that some of the graphic people couldn't get to work because there were some like handheld signs and stuff, like going back to the 1960s technology, where they were holding some stuff up. So I really liked that. I loved the stupid pet tricks. Oh yeah, when they would have people on with that. The stupid human tricks were pretty good. I love the top 10 list, and they brought that on in 1985. The very first topic of the top 10 list in whatever was 1985, things that almost rhyme with peas.
Really,
that was it. Yeah,
and the last one was
top 10 things I always wanted to say to Dave. Yeah, and they brought 10 stars out, each one reading one.
I liked how he was like, "Holy cow, it's Peyton Manning."
Yeah, I liked Julia Louis-Dreyfus's. First of all, she still looks terrific.
The best
at this point, but
last show I've ever been a part of.
Thanks for giving me a chance to be a part of another disappointing.
Yeah, that's right.
Disappointing last show, and 2 or 3.
And Seinfeld was right there.
That's right there because he had been in 2 or 3 earlier. So, of course, he gives her a dirty look. But, yeah, that was good. So the top 10 list was something I always liked. Stupid pet tricks was something I always liked. I loved it. The kids. Yeah, the kid. First of all, Kid Scientist, which he had on every year and doing their experiments. And, of course, he was always going to have fun with that. But then they showed some stuff last night, a kind of a montage of him having interviews with children that weren't a part of the science deal. And, none of it was ever scripted in terms of we're trying to get the kids to do something cute. It was all just let it be what it is, and which was what made it so perfect. I loved when he had Jack Hanna on, because sometimes you wonder if Jack Hanna knew anything about animals.
Yeah,
I mean, he always seemed flustered. Dave always seemed like he actually knew more about the animals than Jack was bringing out. So those were funny. I loved it when he would go out of the studio, and I think he probably did this more than any other talk show host, would go out on the street would send somebody else on the street, like the guy that Rupert G. that runs the Hello Deli. He had him go and annoy people, in an outdoor cafe, and would record it. Dave would go himself and would man the drive-up window at a Taco Bell and annoy the customers that way. So his out of the studio segments were great as well. And again, I thought it was all kind of cutting edge. Nobody else is really doing this kind of stuff.
I didn't realize how big of a staff and a crew it took to do the show. I mean,
it took him quite a while to kind of say goodbye to everybody last night.
A 5-minute rollout of the cast and crew.
So anyway, those are some highlights. I really liked last night the way they showed some of the stuff with the kids. In his finale.
Well, the one where he goes, and this was my favorite. Every time they played these highlights for these kid scientists, and he's like, this kid has these 2 liquids, and he's like, all right, now what is that? The kid was like, I don't know.
The cooking segments were also good when he would have somebody, he'd have Martha Stewart on or somebody else, come on and do some cooking. I always loved his last show before Christmas. He would have Darlene Love come on and sing Christmas Baby. That was always real good.
I thought it was real cool, the Foo Fighters, that story you told, how they had a tour in South America
15 years ago
that they canceled to come on when he came back
from his surgery.
That's pretty
so
cool.
he had them on again last night. Yeah. I wanted to read one thing from Jimmy Kimmel, who, by the way, last night ran a rerun of his show and told people, don't watch it. Don't watch it. Jimmy Kimmel, none of us who discovered Letterman on our own and claimed him as our own will ever be able to satisfactorily explain to younger people who didn't what he did, what he meant, and what he means. And to me, out of all the quotes I've read, and out of all of the praise, that sums it up more than anything else. There's no way, unless you understood the barren landscape that was television comedy at the time, especially with talk shows, and he comes in and blows everything out of the water. Unless you were alive at the time and craving late night comedy, if you couldn't get to sleep like I was, there's just no way you can understand how truly monumental he was. So I just it was very important to me, and I remember on our show we talked way back when we started this thing that we knew Letterman was retiring, and when it happened we were going to hit it on our show.
Yeah, back when we were talking about Colbert.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So there it is. There's our little tribute to Mr. David Letterman. Thanks, Dave. I enjoyed it. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to hit some Memorial Day talk.
Home of the brave.
All right, we hope you liked that version
USA
of the
USA
national anthem. Who was that?
That was Madison Rising.
Okay. I liked it. I liked it more this time than I did the first time you played it for me.
Cool.
So, yeah, good stuff. So, Memorial Day coming up on Monday. It's always the last Monday in May, and it is considered the unofficial beginning of the summer season. Memorial Day is federal holiday. Was
Federal Shopping Day.
I think it's Federal Travel Day. I mean,
why? Because it's the beginning of summer.
Well, I get. Yeah, I think so.
Everyone uses the
kids are
Monday off.
Usually out of school. Maybe by then. I know that my grandson's out of school, and he's gonna be visiting me during the Memorial Day weekend. It started actually to commemorate Union and Confederate soldiers who died in the Civil War. Yeah. Previously, it was called Decoration Day.
And that's where they would put flags on the graves?
Flags, flowers, stuff like that. Now, some people confuse Memorial Day with Veterans Day. Memorial Day is to honor those that died in service. Veterans Day is to honor everyone that served.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I guess living and dead.
Yeah, everyone that served. Yeah.
But there is a confusion there. Thanks for clarifying.
That's what I'm here for.
Yeah, like you said, it was to remember the ones that fought and died.
A traditional observance of Memorial Day is the United States flag is raised briskly to the top of the staff.
Until noon.
No. And then solemnly lowered to half-staff.
Afternoon.
It's raised all the way.
It's raised up at noon.
No, it's raised all the way and then slowly lowered to half.
Something to do with noon.
And then it stays there until noon.
Okay.
And then at noon it's taken
back to
all
the
the
top.
way, raised by the living to commemorate. Memorial Day has a special meaning for me. It's because of my dad. And Dad didn't serve in the armed forces when he was alive during World War II, and he had a heart condition that kept him out of the armed services, but he did serve by working in a shipyard.
Mm-hmm.
And so he built destroyers, battleships, so on and so forth. Working in a shipyard in or around Orange, Texas. But Dad died on Memorial Day, 1997. So that's 18 years ago this week, so next week.
So you remember him and right along
Well,
with
it's just,
others.
I just always think of Dad on Memorial Day because that's when he passed away. Yeah. What about you? Do you have any family, any close friends, anyone that was killed in action in the armed services?
Mm-mm. Nope. Only real veteran we have in our family is my grandpa, who he's been around my whole life, but he married into the family. So not on either side, not really many or any veterans. So within my lifetime,
right.
I'm thinking further back there were some.
Right. Now I know that my grandfather on my mother's side served, but he was dead before I was ever even born. So and he didn't die. He didn't die in action. I don't think I really have anyone that I know that I was close to that was actually killed in the line of duty.
Doesn't take anything away from the day, though.
No, it doesn't take anything away from the day. It's just my personal connection goes really to my
father.
To my father, who passed away on Memorial Day. I mean, I can't say that I go to the cemetery. I don't go to a military cemetery. It's just
the Arlington National. That's a big
National.
one. They actually have volunteers go out there and decorate the graves.
Right. I have been to Arlington National Cemetery.
Oh yeah,
once. Yeah, in 1975, when my mom, my dad, my sister, and I took this big, crazy, long car trip to the East Coast. So I have some pictures of the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, and all of the headstones that no matter which direction you look in, you
are all
on a straight line. It's really,
I thought that was pretty
it's
neat.
beautiful in a tragic and sad way, but it really is beautiful. I have a couple of pictures of the Eternal Flame that is the grave of President John Kennedy. So I've been there once in my life, and it was a very, very long time ago. We hope that you all enjoy your Memorial Day weekend. We will, in all likelihood, be back the first week of June, at which time we might probably with a short episode, because what we're going to want to do,
we're going to want to hit the NBA playoffs,
and we're going to preview the Belmont Stakes, which is where American Pharaoh will attempt to make history and win the Triple Crown. I'll give my picks after I do the analysis of the past performances. And that'll be a short episode.
Yeah, we won't try and we just want to get it out, our predictions and
again
talk about
little
the
basketball talk,
because we really haven't hit the playoffs yet.
We haven't hit them, and again, this will probably be the first week of June. When we hit that.
Yeah. All right. So before we go, I want to make sure y'all know how to get a hold of us. And you go on Facebook on the Boomer and X Show. We have our Yahoo email, and that's theboomerandxshow@yahoo.com. We have our Twitter page, or Twitter handle, @BoomerandXshow. And, John, what you got to say about that?
Send us an email at theboomerandxshow@yahoo.com.
I already said that.
One real quick thing. Remember to check out @Bushy Gaming.
@ZBushy.
@ZBushy.
That's his Twitter.
Right.
And Bushy Gaming on YouTube. Go on there and subscribe to his channel and check out his... and
he's got some really great information for those of you that are looking to master video games. I mean, that's what it's all about, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. and he will give you several jump starts on how to become better at that without spending a whole lot of time. Get you there faster. So check him out and tell him Boomer and X sent you. Last week, right after we did our episode, something in the world of music that was sad happened. And so we're just now getting around to the point where we can mention the late, great B.B. King, who passed away at the age of 89 and won 15 Grammys during his career. The king of the blues.
Yes, he was... Man, the way he'd play is just...
No one
give
else.
You chills. No one else.
Just absolutely get down inside you and
Yep.
give you chills. So we're going to do the same thing that we did with Joe Cocker and with Percy Sledge. We're going to let B.B. King say goodbye for us tonight.
Yep.
We hope you enjoyed listening to The Thrill Is Gone.
Thrill is gone. Thrill is gone away. Thrill is gone, baby. Thrill is gone away. You done me wrong, baby. Gonna be sorry someday. Thrill is gone. Thrill is gone away from me. Thrill is gone, baby. Thrill is gone away from me. Oh, no, I'll still live on. But so lonely. Thrill is gone. Thrill is gone away for good. Thrill is gone, baby. The thrill is gone away for good. I know I'll build it all one day, baby, like I know a good man should. Free now, baby. I'm free from your spell. Free now, baby. I'm free from your spell. Now that it's all over, all I can do is wish you well.